All right, Grant. So I'm here back with you again about talking about marching band as an activity system. And so over the next week that we had in our class, we were talking about the ideas of sharing genres and how people develop their own styles and how they develop their own form of writing, and then how that relates to the activity system itself.
Okay.
So I have a couple questions for you. My first one would be, do you use any recycled ideas or methods that you kind of maybe either changed in your own way or applied as they were to your own approach?
Of course, that's almost the basis of all jazz is listening to someone play a cool lick and, recycling that and using it on your own to kind of create your own thing. So all jazz is playing off of someone else's idea.
Mm-hmm.
So you're using their idea and changing it a little.
Okay, sweet. So yeah, I guess this leads into the next question. So when you take that idea from someone, do you kind of keep it in context, or do you shape it your own way?
In jazz, which is what I love, you shape it your own way, and it's like your own take on what the person said to you. Because
Okay.
we talked about how music is a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like they're talking to you, and if you hear something cool, you use different inflection or
Mhm.
change around the notes a little bit, uses it's different notes, different rhythm, and things like that, but it's the same core value.
Okay, I understand. So, do you feel like you said how being shaped and everything? Do you feel that your experience in doing this own shaping and everything has kind of given you your own sort of idea of how you kind of create your own music, how you write your own music, or maybe how you kind of interpret music that's given to you?
Yes, definitely. It's a very interesting way to create your own style because it's all off the tip of your tongue. You don't have time to sit down and maybe off the cusp when you're soloing and improvising with someone. You're just throwing ideas back and forth. It's not like you're sitting down and writing something out and revising it to kind of find your own style. It's very freeing because you get to kind of find out what you like in the moment. It's not like it's thought out so quickly that it doesn't feel like a chore.
So do you feel, in that sense, that there could be multiple perspectives, maybe from your aspect of playing, and then maybe someone else who's playing that part, maybe changing it up in a different way?
Definitely, everyone has their own way to make things sound best. It's very, very seldom will you find a musician that has the exact same style that you play as, and even in the tone quality of how you sound on your specific horn. I've played enough to know how I like to sound, and I've perfected that.
Uh-huh.
And my tone is completely different than Miles Davis. He's a trumpet player, but Dexter Gordon. He's one of my role models, and even that I took his tone because I like it and kind of fused it in with all these other professional saxophone players' sound to make what I like. You can pick apart the things that you like and make it.
So that's
add it in.
exactly. That leads right into my next question. So, what would you say? It's kind of I guess you kind of sort of said. I was gonna say, how would you describe your own development, and maybe how would you describe your development as a musician?
It's all about listening.
All about listening.
All about listening. You sit down and you hear, like Cannonball Adderley, Dexter Gordon, Coltrane play a cool lick, and you go and learn it. And then sooner or later, those licks start becoming part of what you do. Your signature sound, your signature playing style, and that's kind of how music works.
Okay. So then, when you think of these separate ideas that people have come up with, and you're using, and you kind of create your own ideas, would you say, from the marching band aspect as the as the activity system, would you say everybody working on their different part brings kind of its own sound to the whole band? Maybe each year, maybe it progresses over time. You know what I'm saying?
Big influence would be the particular director of that year as being one of the driving forces in that change. Some directors like certain types of music, so they'll have the band is influenced by the person writing drill or writing the music itself to, kind of make the band sound a certain way. But then you also have players that come in with different backgrounds that'll make a section as a whole sound different. And because one of the special things about music is when you hear other players play, you start picking up on things that they're doing, nuances that you don't even know that you're doing. So it can change.
Perfectly, exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How like you guys cooperate and like sort of communicate with each other in like your own way. You kind of, like you said, listen and like sort of interpret each other's ideas to kind of bring a wholeness to like the music itself.
Definitely.
That's perfect.
You have to.
And so in that case, how would you say? Because I noticed this a lot. Because like obviously I've been like playing too, and I've been in marching band. I noticed that a lot of the time when like you guys are giving music or like when you're going through it, you write a lot on like the music itself and like how you figure out different things. So so that's leads to the question of like, what role do you think writing plays in the involvement of yourself with the music and then the music within like the whole band?
Writing on your music is the simplest form is just to remind you of things that you're doing in the music, but it's almost your own personal take on what you need to think of or what you need to do with your fingers, your embouchure, whatever that is, to play what you need to play. So without that there for you to remember, all those special things in music that you hear, all those little tiny details that musicians put into music are lost because you just can't possibly remember all of them. You have to write them down.
Yeah. Okay. So, in that sense, and like understanding like your own development and how you feel writing plays the major part, and then introducing it all within like the activity system itself, what would you say? What would you say are things that you've taken into consideration when you take your own view, like when you take your own view of band, what would you say are the things that you like to add to your approach and things that you don't like when it comes to taking your approach?
My favorite thing to do in my approach to music in general is to just sit back and really use my ears to influence how I sound. I'm big into music theory and everything else, writing it down, knowing all the right notes to play, and all the scales to play. But the most important part is listening to what other people have to say or play and interpreting that. Because for me, without that, there's no point in playing, because you play for someone else to listen to what you are playing and take that idea from you and make it into their own thing. So it's almost like this relationship the musicians have with each other, and if you don't sit back and relish in that, it's kind of the whole point's lost to me.
Really.
And then those are the things that I try to do personally in my approach, is to really just sit back. It's almost like a Zen approach where you just need to sit back and listen before you can really get into the complicated scales and all that music.
Yeah. So in a sense, it's like kind of you really are getting down to the nitty gritty of understanding the band as being like a unit, like a family itself.
Yeah.
So you could say like that writing and that like texture with each other is kind of what makes up the band.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And that's
the
most important part of music.
So in understanding like writing as a foundation of being a part of band, like the types of writing, like we've been discussing over the past couple of interviews, my like last and final question would be, in what ways do you see writing? In what ways do you see writing incorporated into band that maybe we haven't discussed, or things like where you feel like maybe activities you guys have done, like writing with each other, like other forms of writing, like actual like literature in a sense?
When our jazz combo is together, we will sit down and have a jam session and just go off the cusp, just play whatever. And when something sounds cool, it's write that down. You know what I mean? It's it's almost like in a Fortune 500 company when they sit down and just spitball ideas back and forth until something sticks, and they write it down and start to build off of that idea. Like that's how the iPhone was made. So they sit down and someone said, okay, let's put these two things together. And it's the same thing in music, where you have You just sit down, play, and then the important part is writing down the ideas that you have that's really stick or sound really good. That's one of the. It's almost you could interpret it as creative writing, I guess, and just getting that part of it done. And then just the individual task of sitting down and trying to figure out the theory side of music. You also need to write a lot on and have a good understanding of the music itself.
So what you could say is like it's kind of because I was talking about this in like my class about the informal approach before taking the formal approach. So could you say drafting that music and like kind of getting your ideas out on the board could be the informal approach before taking the formal approach and maybe
of course it gives you a whole different perspective as to what you're really playing. If you can take that informal approach and try to write a piece of music, you understand what the composer of the piece of music that you're playing, their thought process, the thought process of a composer. And it's a unique thought process, and you just have to experience that informal learning. It's just an informal learning experience before you can go in formally and clean up certain bars or certain measures or add in dynamics and accents and morcatos and staccatos, things like that in music.
Exactly. Perfect. All right. Well, that I'm telling you right now, these interviews have definitely given me a lot of insight into like my project and how I'm gonna understand band as an activity system, and not just in the sense of like I've played in band and stuff. So like you've kind of given me the different perspective. So I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you. And
no problem.
if I have another interview, I'll definitely come back to you.